in the recording is in progress, apparently. So we talked about the energy efficiencies campaign, how that might look. Since then, there's been more progress, and Mark Thompson is going to share some slides and talk about kind of where that's been going up to, and then we will have a small discussion at the end, I guess, on how we can all help a bit more broadly towards delivering this, and also talk a little bit about the distribution network of the content produced. But I'll hand over to Mark now and let him go through his slides.
Thanks, Steve. Can you let me share screen, please?
Oh, apologies. That'll be Martin on that job,
or whoever. Martin.
Yeah, I will, Mark. Actually, if I can remember how to do it.
It's the little arrow in the screen share button down the bottom.
Yeah, share screen.
Not for you to share screen, just the.
No, does that? Have you got the powers now, Mark?
Yes, I have. Thank you. Okay. So I have no idea who was on the call last time. So, but this is a much more thorough overview of my sort of proposal for what we might do. So I've labelled this the Energy Savvy programme for reasons that will become clearer a little bit later on. And it's all about enabling householders to become empowered in managing and reducing their own energy for their own comfort, their own bills, etc., etc., etc. So a little bit more about me and my background. So I was head of energy at Innovate UK for a few years, and I've been in the public sector in decarbonisation for over a decade. But I've always had a very strong interest in heating homes, energy in homes, and how to engage people in understanding and taking action on energy for themselves. It's a fantastic and intriguing nut to try and crack. So since retirement, which is about 2 years ago, I've done a lot in this particular area. I've been able to follow my nose, and this is a sort of a route map of where I've been in the last few months in particular, and what I think we can do off the back of it. So a little bit more about me. I've done 2 extensive eco retrofit projects in the last 12 years, one my own home, one my in-laws home with heat pumps, solar thermal, solar PV, heat recovery, ventilation, underfloor heating, lots of insulation, blah, 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 the whole works on 2 older properties. I've also got a professional thermal imaging camera, which I bought about 10 years ago, got myself trained up professionally on how to use that. Really as a hobby, doing friends and family and basically anyone that was of interested in me doing it. And as a way of keeping my hand in and learning about buildings and physics and people and how they behave in buildings, etc., etc. And I also do talks to the general public on this specific subject. I do other talks as well, to mainly sort of Probuses and U3As and WIs and stuff like that, and any audience I can get in front of as well. So back in January, I put out an open offer to the Transition Northwich community of people, which is about 800 people on a Facebook group, to say, I've got a thermal imaging camera, I know a lot about home energy and how to improve energy efficiency in homes, offering my services for free to go into anyone's home and help understand what they could do to improve comfort, to reduce energy bills, and to help them understand anything they needed to understand about energy. So that the lead feature, if you like, of all this was, I've got a thermal imaging camera, great, it captures the imagination of everybody, gets you through the door. And I use that camera probably 25% of the time when I was in homes, but I looked at anything the homeowner wanted to look at, whether it's helping them understand their heating controls, how to find and fix drafts, how to solve issues with the rooms that felt particularly cold, how to help them understand a bit about heat pumps, help to understand heating controls like thermostatic radiator valves, and focus on anything that was of interest to them, that was either particularly of interest or maybe general interest. So it's a very holistic approach, which also very importantly took in really a good understanding of how the house was used, what their thermal preferences are, what their understanding or the base level of understanding of energy was within the household, and also their understanding in terms of practical skills for what they might be able to do and what architect they might have for fixing stuff themselves. So it was a very, very holistic approach going into homes. I did 30 home visits over a period of about 6 weeks. Each survey was about 2 hours. And it was all for free. It was just for fun. I learned an enormous amount more than I did. I learned everywhere I went. Every home is different. Every homeowner is different. I came back with a fantastic set of inputs to me as to other learning that I could help other people with. So that was an enormously rewarding process. Win-win both sides. Really, people got free survey, and it was very bespoke to them. And there were always half a dozen, maybe 10, maybe 15 things that I could lead them to think about, to do something about. So there's a very strong walk away position in terms of them feeling empowered with some knowledge to either behave differently in the home or to do something a little bit differently, or simple knowledge on how to fix particular problems that they've got. So that's what I did as an experiment. Fantastic response in terms of the number of people that wanted it. I couldn't keep up with it. I couldn't get through all the ones that people wanted. But it really opened my eyes to a lot of people out there feel that they don't understand energy and they need bespoke help. But of course, this is only me doing a handful of people over a few weeks. But
just a quick interrupt. Your voice is sort of fading a bit at times.
Okay, I will move into the hall because my wife's also on a Zoom call, so our broadband is probably a little bit stretched. So
It could be just your own sort of intonation.
Yeah. I'm going nearer the router.
Nearer the router. Right.
Nearer the router is above me.
Maybe go nearer the microphone as well.
Okay, that's here on my. Is that coming across better?
Yeah, we've got you. Yeah, just keep speaking up. Don't fade out.
Hello. Okay. So the problem, as I see it, is obviously we're very aware that the energy costs have risen significantly, 81% for gas and 34% for electricity already. But obviously we're not getting hit by that mentally or practically because it's not winter yet. We're into the lean period of the year, which is fantastic. But what I did find, and it wasn't a surprise, was that energy literacy is poor out there, really, really poor in some cases. Not helped by lots and lots of myths and rumours about energy that I won't try to go into now. There are lots of misperceptions about energy as well as basic lack of knowledge. And off the back of that, the literacy in terms of understanding what solutions that there are to some of these problems and the skills to fix them are very, very limited in some cases as well. So I came across one household where, for example, they did not know that to make the lounge warmer, they needed to turn the valves up on the radiators. I went into one home where they didn't know what a Phillips screwdriver was. There are enormous, very simple gaps that are very easy to fill to help people understand how to overcome sometimes very, very simple issues. And there wasn't a single house that I went to where people had actually got down on their hands and knees to look for drafts themselves. Or they were aware of drafts and they knew where they were coming from, but they didn't know how to fix them. So it's very, very simple stuff. And having somebody in the house that could say, this is how you do it. This is how you adjust the radiator valve. This is how it's a very easy way of finding drafts. And these are some of the simple solutions you can use to fix them was like manna from heaven for some people. And I would also say one part of this problem is that if you look online at information on energy efficiency, whether that's Energy Saving Trust or Centre for Alternative Technology or anywhere you look, it's pretty generic. It's often in the wrong language. People do not understand what a kilowatt hour is in most cases. And because it's so generic and it's in a language that most people can't quite understand, people don't feel that they're able to adapt what that is saying to their specific context and their specific home. And there is no independent support for this, for helping people understand how to improve their energy usage in their home in this sort of face-to-face way. There are tradespeople, of course, but I would say the conventional trades, such as your gas fitters, plumbers, electricians, builders, do not understand this agenda, do not have the TLC to help people understand energy and what they need to do for themselves. It is extremely poorly served as an agenda area from that particular group of the professional community. and people don't necessarily trust what they see on their energy supplier website or what a heat pump manufacturer or a heat pump installer is saying either. So there's no independent support for people that can help them and coach them on the basics of energy and how to save energy and how energy behaves in a building. And also there are some very basic knowledge gaps on heat pumps. Again, the information on heat pumps typically is in the wrong language. It doesn't say to people in very clear terms, if you have a heat pump, it will mean you'll need a box about this big, you'll probably go at the back of the kitchen. You'll need a hot water tank, by the way, because that isn't really spelled out on websites. And then you'll need X, Y, Z in terms of other things. So people are very reluctant to go to talk to heat pump manufacturers and heat pump installers, for example, because A, they don't quite understand it. They feel they're going to get played, or they're going to get taken advantage of by a party with a commercial interest. So explaining the tech side of energy, whether that's heat pumps, solar PV, solar thermal, smart controls, whatever it is, people really valued that sort of independent grassroots opinion from somebody who had no commercial positions to protect. So my observations from this overall, over the sort of 30 surveys I've done and the stuff I've done in the past, is there are the vast majority of homes I went to, I would describe them as they are inefficiently run from an energy efficiency point of view, really inefficient in many cases, including significant overheating issues in some properties. There was one home I visited where they said, we can only have the heating on so long in the winter because the kids complain it's too hot upstairs and we don't know what to do about it, so they have to turn the heating completely off. And that means they're cold downstairs. And it was a very simple issue of people not understanding how to use radiator valves. And people, as a result of that, are incurring unnecessarily high energy costs. And I would say overall, across the portfolio of homes I visited, there's at least a 20% saving on energy across that that range of homes. Probably more, certainly more in some cases. I had people heating their hallway to 23 degrees C, and it had always been that warm in that part of the house, and they hadn't really thought about, well, actually I could turn the radiator valve off. So sometimes it's just challenging them back and challenging them as to why they're heating their hall like that, why they're heating 72 room, why they're heating the downstairs room as it is. They do not need to. So it's about being a pragmatic, supportive and coach, and being a little bit challenging in the right sort of way as well. So it's a much higher energy costs on the behavioural side, as well as some issues that are endemic anyway, which I'll talk about in a minute. And as a result, there were also some people who were unnecessarily cold, people who, as I say, didn't know how to turn the radiator valve up, and had lived in a cold house for 2 years. A brand new house, effectively, that they were saying it's 2 years old. Why am I still cold in this house? It's stressing me out. My kids are complaining, and it's because they didn't know how to turn the radiator valves up. So I believe there are significant improvements that could be made with the right sort of appropriate education to empower people to understand better about the basics of energy, how to conserve it, how to use it, how it works, how the building works, that's appropriate for their context and their circumstances. And the other thing that was really strong out of all of the 30 surveys or visits, the amount of money that people needed to spend to get their home really working properly for them was virtually nothing. You know, you're talking of £5, £10 for draft proofing sealant in many cases, behavioural changes. There was only one home where I said, you know, if you really want that lounge to be warm, you're going to have to replace those old patio doors because they're metal frame and they're poor glazing and they're awful. But other than that, there were people who were thinking about upgrading their glazing, and I told them basically you don't need to, you just need to fix the drafts. But the takeout from it was that I was able to leave people with a budgetary spend of a few tens of pounds maybe, and some valuable understanding about how to fix their problems for themselves with a screwdriver, effectively as simple as that in many cases, that was completely new to them. And I think the other observation I would say from people I visited, certainly on arrival, is I felt people to start with, the base position is many people today out there feel powerless and confused because energy is very complicated actually, because it's heat, electricity, it's interacting with the building, it's technologies, it's boilers, it's radiators. There's all sorts of information out there, and if they don't understand it well enough, and even the basics, it can feel pretty overwhelming. So here's some examples of some of the knowledge gaps that are out there. Some of these are known in the professional domain, but householders were not aware that in 90% of the homes, more than 90% of the homes I visited, the condensing boilers were not set up correctly. They weren't operating in condensing mode, and the homeowners were effectively wasting up to about 8% of their gas bill simply by the boiler temperatures not being correct. And that's a failing of the current heating industry, which is acknowledged sort of in professional circles, but unfortunately there's no fix for it possible really. It's something very entrenched. I won't try and go into it now. There's plenty of online information about it, but only one, or I think it might be 2 boilers out of all the homes I visited were actually operating in condensing mode. So that is something that can be fixed in minutes. Most people have no clue. So I was able to leave people with a bit of a guide as to what to do, where to look for the right information to help them reduce their boiler temperatures appropriately, to help them save some money for absolutely no cost whatsoever. Only 5% of people of the homes I visited understood how to use the thermostatic radiator valve. I think it was actually might have been one home actually. All of the others, every thermostatic radiator valve I went to in every room was set to number 5, because people do not realise that they're actually very precise devices for controlling temperature. Nobody out there realised that if you put it to number 3, the room stays at a nice, happy, stable 20 degrees or 21 degrees. It's a very sophisticated little device that people do not know how to use them, because no one's explained it to them, because heating engineers never do. And people don't read the instructions, and the instructions are rubbish anyway. And even if you look at YouTube, the YouTube videos on how to use a TRV are appalling. They do not give it in the right sort of language, in the right sort of way. I only came across 1 or 2 people who had actually got smart meter in-home displays, and only one of those actually really knuckled down and really understood how to use one of those devices to help them save energy. They've got a bit nerdy about it, fantastic, but they've got an enthusiasm for it, and they felt really empowered off the back of that. So, and I came across homes who said to me, my energy supplier is suggesting I want to get one. What do you think? Is it the right thing to do? You know, there's nervousness out there, and I simply said to people, yes, get one, and you know, and I can help you understand how to get value out of it. Another one which is quite common in some properties, particularly in 50s and 60s properties, is issues with suspended floors, which is very common in that era and earlier on in times as well. People had no awareness at all about how much heat they're losing through those, or the solutions to try and fix it. And there are a range of solutions, some of them very inexpensive, to fix issues with suspended floors, which are thermally a nightmare. I lived in a home with one. And I would say there are countless easy solutions to find and fix drafts that would save people a fortune in going and buying new UPVC glazing to replace the existing UPVC glazing, when all that they need to do is understand how to draft proof the existing UPVC glazing. So the practical knowledge about how to find drafts is easy, and to give people a little bit of a guidance on how to solve some of their problems isn't particularly hard either. So I was able to show people, this is what you do. This is the sort of product you'd use. This sealant or this foam strip is the sort of thing you can use to solve this problem and completely fix your issues. So those are some simple examples. There are lots of others. The 2 top ones there, the boiler one and the TRV one, I would say are the biggest. There are many homes that are throwing away 20% of their energy simply because they've got those 2 issues, and they are completely unaware of those very simple opportunities to make a significant improvement to the efficiency of the home and make it more comfortable too. So some of the solutions to how to sort of take the bones of this and distill it into something that's more that can be replicated. There are a number of options. One is to recruit and train and administer, I'll use that word with a little a, a network of other people that, like me, that have got no axe to grind, have got the right sort of knowledge. We can go into the communities locally because we're trusted, and sort of give people our thoughts and advice and help them understand energy, help them understand their home, help them understand the problems they've got and how to fix them. That's one solution. And fortunately, it's something that if you want to deal with 28 million homes, it's an impossible challenge, because I only got around 30 homes, and there are, I don't know, 8,000 in Northwich or 20,000 in Northwich or something. So it's obviously has value, but in terms of scalability, it's got limitations. But I think it's a fantastic thing to do. Another one that could be used as a tool to try and get this sort of very practical knowledge and understanding out there is some form of community-focused discussion workshops, village halls, scout group headquarters, in the local pub, talking about it for anyone that wants to come along. This is the sort of stuff I do a bit of already, but I think a valuable tool, I think. But I think given the sorts of numbers I see it respond to these sorts of events, it's not going to hit quite it's not going to hit the mass market, as it were. But I think that there is a real opportunity, and this is the sort of key thrust of what I want to do with your help as well, especially, is build a library, in inverted commas, of engaging written visual information that can be shared widely electronically. That's really plain talking, that focuses on the very basics in straightforward language about how to use a thermostatic radiator valve. If you turn it to number 5, it will just be fully on. There'll be no heating control in a room. Start off with it at number 3, just nudge the position up a little bit or down a little bit if you're warm or cold, and never turn it to 0, never turn it to 5. The basics of that, and helping people understand that if they do twiddle with it, they're not going to have water pouring out of their pipe. These guides have to be written the right sort of way. I've done a bit of it in terms of sort of sharing some of this back onto the Transition Northwich Facebook group with some bits of learning. I've experimented with language, and it's been very well received. But it's finding it in a way, making it in a way that's very, very accessible for people, that doesn't make them feel stupid at all, and makes them walk away with something that they thought, oh, I had no idea. I really didn't know that's what a smart meter could do for me. I really didn't know that you just need a very simple tool called a piece of paper, and I can go around looking for gaps in my window sills. So it's really, really organic stuff that really does connect with people with how it has to be presented. So I have brainstormed a list of all the sort of nuggets of subjects that I could talk about in a Word document, PDF, or a web page, breaking it down into little bite-sized chunks that people can read in a 5-minute read that's engaging, that grabs their attention. Now, how much does it cost to run a dishwasher? How much does it cost to run my tumble dryer compared to doing my clothes washing? I know that sort of information. I think that's really useful information that people would value. So I've broken it down to a number of sections here. There are 6 or so heading areas, everything from heating controls through to new technology, through to windows and doors and what to look out for. There's a note, there'll be a document in there that's all about garages. If you've got an integrated garage in a 1990s house, you've got horrendous issues with ceiling insulation, you've got drafts through to your utility room at the back through the back door. There are lots of things that people aren't aware of that they are living with that can very, very easily be fixed with the right know-how and sometimes pure. So I've broken it down. This list is not definitive, it's just a starter for 10. But there is a nice categorization there of things that will really help people de-fear energy and help people feel a bit more empowered. And on the new and renewable technologies one, what a heat pump is, the very basics of it, what it would mean practically, why the cost varies so much. In some houses it's simple. Why is it going to be lower in some houses than others? So that people actually understand what the implications are for them. So taking that sort of, what at the moment is sort of 35 individual 1-page, 2-page documents with photographs and guides and web links. My goal is to produce those in the latter part of the summer in an order that feels logical. Some of them are seasonally dependent. Obviously, the heat ones mainly are. but not all of them are. Certainly insulation isn't particularly seasonal, because really now is the time to get in the loft. You don't want to go in the loft when it's cold weather. But a sort of a game plan of this sort of Gantt view is the sort of thing I've got in my mind for creating this content, which distills everything I've learned from all the sort of home visits and surveys I've done, and stuff I've learned about online, and stuff I've learned from some of the people I met. I met people who were really, really Anunnaki. One person, an absolutely fantastic Anunnaki about gas boiler temperatures. I've learned so much from him. I've learned so much from somebody who's got a smart home thermostat. I haven't got one, but taking learning from real world examples, from real people, and saying, this person in the Northwich has done this. This is how they did it, and this is the benefit they're getting. So that list of 35 isn't in stone. The game plan running order that I've got on there isn't actually the real one. It's just something to illustrate the sort of drip feed timing that I would create this content for, content and want to get out. So I'm focused on creating these 35 message documents, learning documents, whatever we might call them. I need help from organisations like the Sustainability Forum, or in whatever way it can, to help package these nuggets of stuff and help distill them out to the outside world through web forum, web content in whatever form, PDFs, leaflets to housing association, tenants, whatever it might be, as appropriate, and draw on this portfolio of stuff that, on the face of it, people might think heating in homes is a boring subject, but I would hope the goal would be, when they look at any one of these documents, people will go, oh, that's interesting, that's fresh, that's down to earth, that helps me as a busy nurse with 3 kids understand a little bit about what I need to do to save money on the gas. So last slide now, there is, I think, some potential added value here. One is pushing this content. If we can, I want to generate the content, you lot can do what you want with it, but the broad opportunity or nationally potentially is to push it out into some national Facebook groups. There are no big national Facebook groups on energy efficiency, surprisingly. There are a number focused on how to save money. But the number of Facebook groups about saving energy are very limited. There are a handful of them, and they've only got a very small membership, surprisingly, and disappointingly, I suppose. But there are national groups that, once this content exists, particularly if it's hosted somewhere, could be pushed out to try and put the impact more broadly. There is also a great opportunity, I feel, in about half of the cases, half of these 35, to do a short video to support what the document says. So for a great example would be, one of the documents would be about electronic thermostatic radiator valves, because you can get battery powered devices which are fantastic, and a video that shows people how to fit one, because you can fit one in 5 minutes. You don't need a plumber. Look, this is how you do it. You can unscrew your existing old-fashioned mechanical thermostatic radiator valve, and you can fit one of the electronic ones. You can have different times and different temperatures for that room any time of the day. Control it from your phone. Make it really, really accessible and very, very straightforward, organic language to people as well. So I think there's an opportunity in about half of these documents to support it with a snappy sort of 2-minute professionally produced video with good sound. I think this was a suggestion from Steve the other day. We could also, I do want to continue my home visits next winter, and for some of those we could have a camera along that actually records, and then we edit and distill from that some of the key findings in the video, so that we've got effectively a little 5-minute documentary about someone's house with their consent. Let's go in and we can show what we found in their home, and we can get their reaction to the learning that they've got off that visit and some of the things that we found. And then lastly, I think there are opportunities from all of this to continue doing talks. We could do drop-in clinics in the middle of town, where people with an energy issue or just want to understand a bit more about the home can come in and talk about, ask questions about heat pumps or insulation or smart heating controls or whatever it might be. Or we could do workshops in the locality anywhere as well. So it's a way of supporting it and a way of helping to drive it along with a bit of colourful face-to-face stuff along the side of it as well. And then lastly, there's strong interest in piggybacking off the back of whatever we do here from Sustainable Action Frodsham, NIM, Environment Action Forum, and also possibly Nantwich Council, both on the documents stuff, the electronic stuff, but also on the idea of potentially finding other people that have this, that take on board this sort of energy coaching role next winter informally in Frodsham, and then I've got people in Frodsham and then who are very keen to sort of replicate what I've done in Northwich in their own areas with my help and guidance. So that's it. I don't know how much time I've taken, probably too much, but
No,
so that's it. That's it in a nutshell.
Yeah, and I think there's a couple of kind of slightly supplementary points that the kind of that have happened since we met to discuss this only Tuesday evening. I've spoken to Will Pearson and Councillor Beecham, and they've agreed to put or very confident of being able to put a budget against this, particularly against the video elements of it.
Yeah.
About using potentially, well, Canteen Create to make the videos as slick and as clean as possible in order to make sure that they are really engaging, because as you mentioned, you know, if you go digging for it, this information is out there, but it's about being able to make it accessible to people. And I think there's real appetite for this at the moment, particularly because of the huge increases in energy bills. And again, having spoken with council officers, the ability to convey the material that's created to sanctuary housing, to social housing in the area would be a really key element to making sure this is reaching the people that it needs to. Well, it would be useful to reach everyone, but you know, it particularly has an element to tie in with the poverty emergency agenda that Quack has as well. So there's some really strong elements there. The cathedral said that when I mentioned this to them, that they would be happy to circulate to the congregation anything that we said there, as would it be could go out with Quack's climate newsletter. You mentioned the social media accounts that we have, home visits, yes. So I think that's the amount that I want to say. I think, Gillian, you might have had your hand up first there.
Okay, Mark, I thought what you're proposing, those 35 messaging documents, is absolutely fantastic. And there's, without a doubt, there's a massive need for it. From a Chester Community Energy perspective, I think we could absolutely work with you and try and get that message out and use it to share as much as we possibly can in various different fora. So there's been quite a lot of discussion on Community Energy England groups about how they can change their focus instead of just generating energy for community groups, how to help different communities, especially the ones that are really struggling, and how to help them with energy efficiency. So this sort of documentation, if you know, as the messaging is very simple and clear, I think it would be ideal for Community Energy England as an organisation to get behind it as well. So that's something we can feed in there. I think the biggest challenge, as you mentioned before, is getting to the right audience. So we've as Chester Community Energy, we've had some documents about how to save energy, and we've gone to various different sustainability fora and things. But the people at those sorts of forum know what they're talking about, and you know, you've got a list of 10 energy saving ideas, and they mentally tick off, I do that, I do that, I do that. I think it's engaging with people who don't have energy top of mind and don't know how to discuss the energy needs. I think it's absolutely critical. I think you've got it spot on.
Great.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so where I need the help, I can generate the content. I haven't got the capacity to do anything by way of project managing this or you know, engaging and getting it out there. That's where I need the help. You know, creating the content is going to be pretty time consuming.
Yeah.
And it's summer. I don't want to do other things as well.
Okay.
I'm meant to be retired.
I'm volunteering to help get it into Community Energy England then. I'll take that bit on.
Brilliant, thank you, Julian. Andy Ross?
Yeah, hi Mark. I hope all's good. Yeah, agree with everything said and everything Julian just said. And one thing that we were thinking of doing was applying for funding through the Energy Redress Scheme to develop a phone app, basically, where you just put basic information in about your house and postcode, and it picks up your EPC rating and things like that, and then offers the most appropriate recommendations, but probably in most cases pretty much everything if you've got an older than 5-year home or whatever.
I suspect that might end up a bit too formulaic, a bit like an EPC. What I think is really important, every home is different, and the diversity is amazing in terms of the homes and the circumstances and how people use homes, as well as their own thermal preferences and interests. So I worry about anything that's a formulaic approach, I have to say.
Yeah, it's kind of the balance between keeping it less than a couple of minutes to do, and then but essentially covering all of this stuff would go into it as recommendations. And if it was a phone app, I know not everybody has a phone or interacts with media in that way, but a lot of people do. Be keen to chat about that, because I was planning on trying to put a funding application in to do something along. I have all the ideas that you'd explain.
Maybe it would be worth looking through the content 35 to get a feel as to where there might be some safe ground or some strong ground to back it to act as a foundation. I'll happily share a spreadsheet I've got with you.
Yes, potentially we can attach that to the minutes that go out. Just talking of the minutes, Martin, you just in the chat, Tammy's just said that the Citizen Advice Bureau could be a good place to share this. Can you just make sure that gets captured? John Mason?
Yeah, just following up what you were saying, Steve, about possibly using Canteen or a similar creative to produce these videos. And I mentioned it at the last meeting. I mentioned TikTok and Instagram and things like that. And I think producing tiny little 10-second videos that are maybe of a half dozen headline items that are going to be immediately communicable to everybody.
Yeah.
And then, because the way that would work on Instagram. I'm not sure about TikTok. I don't use TikTok, but on Instagram, you'd see an interesting video, and then you can scroll down at the bottom and you can link through to this bigger resource of all the 35 or 36. I can't remember what the number was, but I think having some more immediate mechanism to get wider exposure, so that we're not just in a silo preaching to the converted, or that's the and I think using creatives like Canteen, other marketing people in Chester would be a really good idea, because I don't think we should be looking at this as being a Chester thing or a Limb thing or a Northwest. No, it could be it could be national and further than that.
I agree, but it started in Cheshire.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
A celebrity or two, if anyone. I don't know any celebrities, but that'd be good. Influencing, I think is the.
No, it's key. It's a key element to influencing people now. More people spend more time looking at their social media than they do watching television, for example. So being able to engage in more than one social media is absolutely key.
I mean, the obvious follow-up to that is that these people who would do that do need paying.
Yes, no, that's exactly right.
It's about identifying some funds to do that.
Yes, and between members' budgets and potentially the climate emergency, as well as Quack's general comms budget, both as I mentioned, Councillor Beecham and Will Pearson were very confident of being able to put at least some budget towards that. And the Sustainability Forum does have a small amount in the coffers, as it were. But yeah, we'll see what it comes.
I think it's also important to put my hand up and say I don't want paying for any of this. I'm just doing it because I love doing it. And when I retired, it was because I didn't want to do anything with a contractual commitment, if you know what I mean. But I do this for love.
Yeah,
that's why I'm drawing the line at only doing the bit that I feel I want to do and I feel motivated to do through the evenings of the summer, which I will definitely do with it.
That in itself is already such a huge thing anyway, Mark. So nobody's doubting your commitment to the cause by any stretch. Andrew Needham.
Yes, there was a report in the Chronicle today about fracking. I just want to report on the position from INEOS. My former colleagues in that company say that INEOS have ambitions in this direction, not near Ellesmere Port, it'll be more in Mid-Cheshire where the shale gas is. And they say it will now be a matter for the British Geological Society. The government have asked the British Geological Society to come forward with recommendations as to what is an acceptable limit for the tremors which may occur. So I think,
sorry, Andrew, is this related to the energy topic that we're talking?
yes, it is.
Okay, sorry, carry on.
I mean, some say that we need more gas, and it could well come from shale gas. And INEOS say that this is not a political matter now. It has been referred to the British Geological Society, who will advise on what is a reasonable limit to the size of tremors as measured in the Richter scale.
Okay. Sorry, Andrew. I'm still struggling to see the relevance to the topic of conversation just right at the moment. I think it would be interested many of the group, but we have an AOB and any other business at the end if you wanted to discuss it.
I'm sorry, but this does relate to energy policy and fuel poverty as well.
I disagree, actually, Andrew, because what I'm talking about here is measures that people can take to improve their thermal comfort and reduce their energy bills immediately come winter. Nothing to do with fracking will make any difference to that for many years to come.
No,
this is all about giving people knowledge literally within 5 minutes of picking something up that they can actually action directly.
Sorry.
No. Thank you, Andrew.
This is within the home. This is all within the home.
Any other idea? We're talking about a distribution network. Anything jump to mind for anyone else who thinks of a key area that either they or that we should target? Come to mind for anyone? I think it's the wide range that we're already proposing is quite broad and would be quite extensive to achieve. But sorry, go on, Pete.
Yeah, I'd certainly pass it on to Friends of the Earth nationally, particularly about things like TikToks and that. Their social media could be really good at promoting that to thousands of members around the country and all the local groups.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you for that, Pete. Really appreciate that. Okay, so there's going to be more work in the background. Yourself, Andy, and Gillian have expressed an interest to kind of help support this going forward. In terms of the content creation, Mark's confident in being able to deliver that, and I think that you said you've already kind of got a backlog of homes to be visiting. So potentially, Ian Bish says he's also keen to help in any way he can. Yes. Okay, unless anyone's got anything else immediate on that topic, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda. Okay, so the next item we've got on there is the prospect of a campaign that's coming up in that will likely be being run in our not in our July meeting, but more likely in our September meeting. It's a project related to a youth campaign. One is the key elements of this is one, to run the campaign itself, which will potentially most likely be driving forward we've had the beginnings of already, progress towards Chester becoming a national park city. But the other really key elements of this is to have young people leading on this and have the Sustainability Forum as a whole supporting. And so maybe what would be best is to ask either James or Rebecca. I realise Hannah's not here, but Jennifer, if you want to chip in from the zoo's point of view at any point, feel free to do so. Maybe if I go to James first, you want to just give a bit of more background potentially, and what the prospect is, although I have outlined it slightly there.
Yeah, so basically Cheshire Wildlife Trust has got a team of young leaders now, and we're hoping basically to get them, well, running a youth-led campaign. We're sort of in our early days still, and I mentioned this back in January that we really wanted to sort of come to the forum and sort of pitch a youth-led campaign to the forum. So I've sort of also been meeting with Rebecca and Tammy from Chester Uni, and then also Hannah from the zoo as well. Because we've all got our own different youth teams as well, and we thought because we're all working on the same sort of threads of youth empowerment, and we've also got lots of experience with sort of nature, we could sort of come together and join forces really for one bigger youth campaign. So my team is sort of working on the National Park City vision for Chester, so that's something that I know a lot of people from this group have expressed interest in, and my team are really enthusiastic. They've also just joined up with the zoo's sort of apprentices as well, and basically they've got loads of ideas, and I think they're just going to need a little bit of support from all of you to try and sort of bring some of those things to life. Because I think it's all about sort of bringing sort of the community together, showing that Chester wants to be a sustainable city and wants to sort of prioritise nature within the city as well. So we've just had those initial conversations, and we've pitched the idea to Steve of perhaps doing this sort of youth-led sort of takeover of the forum in September. And I think that's sort of where we're aiming to. So I think probably in the meantime, it'd be better just for Rebecca perhaps to now talk about sort of the youth sort of led expo and her side of things.
Thanks, James. Yeah, there's actually quite a lot of youth related stuff going on at the moment, which is brilliant. So in addition to James's suggestion for the kind of National Park City focused area of activity, there are various other events, I guess, coming up that are going to be youth-led and youth-focused. One of which Neil is actually going to talk about the Green Expo later, one day of which is going to be a youth conference, which is going to be kind of designed and facilitated by young people who have come from the Cheshire Wildlife Trust, the Young Leaders Network and the zoos, and Tammy and I have actually just been interviewing from the university side of things today. So there's going to be that, which is a kind of a separate but linked forum for creating more space for young voices in a lot of these conversations. And then we're hoping that group that draws from those kind of three networks, if you like, will go forward over the summer to think about what a kind of a longer lasting youth-led network around the climate and nature emergencies in the Chester area could look like. But we're trying not to steer that. We want the young people who are going to be kind of coming together to form that network to determine what the focus of that should be. So that will run in parallel with James's kind of National Park City project, but hopefully mutually supporting. Beyond that, we hope that the Youth Climate Conference that sort of had its first outing in November will happen again in some form, but that's beyond the summer, so we're not really thinking that far ahead just yet. But there's loads going on, and it's really exciting.
I think, as the other two alluded to there, it's my colleague Hannah who's been having these conversations, but there's a consideration around this kind of youth-led forum, the idea that it's going to be focused on land use. I wonder whether we want to have a conversation about whether land use is the only topic that we would like to open up to them, if we're actually thinking about something more broader around climate and land use. And just off the back of the energy conversation we've had there, whether or not we can bring the land use plan into this, whether the timings would fit, so that we can have some sort of kind of youth voice around that land use plan in the borough. And we were kind of considering, whether there were any other topics of campaign that we would suggest adding on to that. So it'd be interesting to hear the views of anyone else.
Well, one, we're going to have a section on potential other campaigns that we could run. There's some ideas. So when in the beginning of the year, I kind of laid out a framework for how we're seeing the forum going to run for the rest of the year, and the 6 meetings we're each going to be focused on one of the 6 sections of QAC's climate emergency plan. And so the first campaign that we run was around the cycle event, which I'll talk about in a second. Now we're talking about housing elements and the energy efficiencies that can be done in there. So being able to have a land use element, or land use campaign within one of them is really key. So yeah, so it absolutely ties in with the direction that the forum's wanting to go. But the other key aim that I said that I wanted the forum to start to do, and Chris might talk a bit about this again in a while, was to diversify the range of people that we have on the forum here, and the types of people that we engage with. So this just absolutely ties into everything that we're trying to do, and being able to have not just a tokenistic engaging with youth and then sitting on a call and then every so often saying, oh, from the youth panel, what do you think? And then they say, well, how's this going to help you young people? And everyone goes, well, I don't know. Actually, if they're actually leading the project and delivering the thing with support from us, I think that's just it just ticks all of the boxes in my opinion personally.
Just a quick question there, Stephen. If we're talking about them kind of taking over one of these meetings, are we then intending in the long term for that to be a kind of standing invitation for them to join these sessions? Like you say, it'd be great to actually start to integrate them into the conversations so that it's almost, we're integrating that voice then.
For me, that'd be an absolute key element of it. The long-term engagement with them and them being part of the forum going forward would be, that'd be fantastic. As I said, that would be the long-term aim for sure.
Yeah, I wonder whether instead of a takeover, there's a different word that we can use, which is almost more about. Well, I don't know whether we even wait until September. We give them the floor in the September session, but whether or not we open these sessions to them for attendance.
That could be really useful. There'll be one more meeting between now and the September session, so them being able to come along to that and just seeing the format and how things run before before they are doing the takeover would probably be quite useful. It
might be interesting in that takeover to hear some reflections from them about how we run our meetings. So if they come and observe us in the in-between meeting, I'd be really interested to hear their feedback in September about how would they run a meeting. Does it, does this forum kind of work for them, or would they actually intervene in it and run it differently?
No, definitely. Yeah, always open to ideas and continual improvement. Tammy?
Yeah, just picking up on that point, Jen. I think that's in one of the conversations we had, that's kind of where it was, the kind of takeover idea came from, that actually let's hand over the forum for them to run a session and get a feel for what it's actually like. And I might be jumping the gun a bit here, because I know Beck and I've been going through this and too many ideas, and also trying to step back a little bit and let the youth group actually design and deliver what it's going to be and how it's going to work. But I think long term, if we're looking at creating a network of various groups of young people, that yes, there would be a kind of, we add them into the kind of forum membership would be my view, I think.
Good. Yeah, sounds great. James?
Yeah, I think sort of to echo those points as well, I think really we need to make sure that the young people are engaging in a way that's meaningful to them. And I think in the current format, it's probably not quite there yet. And I think we need to make sure that they are really able to sort of tell us what they want, how they want to interact, and not just us prescribe something for them. I mean, sort of speaking as an ex-teacher, I know young people like to interact really with quite a lot. And I think we need to perhaps bring in that interactivity element and really to sort of hook more young people into this group.
Yes, indeed. And something that I was slightly disappointed that we hadn't managed to get round to deliver was to get these meetings back in person in some respects, or have at least a hybrid meeting. And so I think that's a key element in order to keep actual engagement up, because there is, you know, as useful as it is and as convenient it is for us all to be in our homes doing this, there is something that gets lost from not being in person there, and there's an engagement element there for sure. Rebecca?
I just really wanted to add that as the forum is I think starting to move towards being organised around kind of projects or campaigns or work streams or whatever you want to call it, then that perhaps creates more of a kind of an easy synergy with the ways that young people might be brought in to these, because they're perhaps more likely to gravitate towards a campaign or a project that is of, you know, a particular passion or of direct personal relevance. So perhaps they will find kind of an easier fit when the forum has kind of transitioned to that slightly different way of working. And then a subset of those young people might then want to come to sort of the full forum meeting like this, where the different threads kind of report back and share ideas. Inevitably, it'll be a bit of a process of trial and error and experimentation, but I think the thematic way is the way to go for lots of reasons.
Yes, yeah, for sure. Fingers crossed they all like are synergistic. Okay, take one final point from Jenny, then we will have to jump on.
I feel like I might just be repeating Rebecca's point, but are we therefore talking about, you know, one dedicated and very much longer discussion in each of our sustainability forum meetings? And maybe that's where we transition to. I'm thinking, you know, with a youth contingent also joining us, we could be a very big group.
Yeah.
And if we have, like we say, themed meetings, then there's you know, horses for courses, then people can attend the meetings that they have really strong passions for, and that's where we might start to create almost sub networks within the sustainability forum on particular issues.
Yes, yeah, no, that was the aim in each meeting being focused on the first half of the meeting being focused on the previous campaign, and the next being shaping the campaign that's to come. We're this time taking a slight consolidation of increasing or starting another campaign in order to make sure that we're delivering the campaigns that have already started. So within this meeting, I'm not proposing that we start a brand new campaign, because we already now have the housing campaign, and we have the cycle event, and we've got the youth land use campaign soon to come. And so at this moment in time, I don't think we're going to start a new one, but actually having that focus of each of the 6 meetings reflecting that, I think is it just seems to my mind at least to be a really nice way to structure things. Okay, so I mentioned the cycle event there. This since we last spoke has stalled a little bit. There was a plan that the Quack and the officers would be more engaged than they currently have the time or capacity for. So there's been a slight step back in the progress that was made in the number of ideas that we discussed back in the January meeting. But there is now a Space Hive application that's going in order to deliver the AT Fest, I think is what it's currently being called. the Active Travel Fest, and there are a number of people that are doing an awful lot of work in order to try and carry this forward. The vast majority in a volunteer basis. So what I mentioned to Stephen Perry, who's in some respects taking the lead on this at the moment, along with members of CRAG, the Chester Residents Associations and Groups. But what I said that I would do this evening would be to put a call out to anyone within the group who this is close to their heart and would be keen to, as Ian put it before, put their shoulders to the grindstone and help deliver things more quickly and more effectively. Don't all shout up at once. I'm sure you have. I am aware that we all have various campaigns running within our own groups. But is there people out there that's happy to help lend a hand on that one? Okay then. That's that, unfortunately.
I just wonder, Steve, I mean, there are people more involved in cycling campaigns who are members but aren't at the meeting. So I can reach out to them after the meeting and, you know, try and persuade them to get involved and support Stephen and Craig. And
I mean, Stephen, sorry, Martin, Stephen is communicating within the cycle campaign, and there are several of us who will be helping from that angle. My understanding was this had been moved to a date next year. Is that?
Yes, so that was one of the other updates, is that actually the April next year is the current proposed date, although not set in stone. But yeah, there's definitely.
I know as well, Pierre, who would normally be on this call, isn't here tonight. Pierre.
Oh yes, of course. Yeah.
Who's and he is promoting the idea of some sort of low key rides in Chester of a Sunday afternoon. He will be communicating those more widely once the details of those are sorted out.
Okay, thank you for that. Tammy?
So is this one that was going to be September, or is that a different event?
No, that was the original plan. But as I said, I think the stall and the way that things have gone have pushed it back to more likely be during next year.
Okay, and my only other comment then, I think, is probably if we're talking about active travel, to not make sure that we're inclusive of other forms and not get too focused on the cycling.
Yes, apologies. Well. Sorry,
I was passing comment.
Yeah, no, for sure. That definitely is the plan within it, is all forms of active travel. I just said cycle event for simplicity. Apologies. Sorry, Kathy.
Yeah, thanks, Tamara, for raising that. I was going to raise that one. Can we perhaps start calling it AT Fest, because that's the working title? Just to add some information about the date, it's earmarked at the moment for the 29th or 30th of April next year. And also, just to add a bit to Andy's comment, to just assure everybody that the cycling campaign is very much on board with this. You know, lots of people in the cycling campaign will be involved. But like you said, Steve, thanks ever so much for asking if anyone else is going to be involved. And obviously, as things become clearer nearer the date, we'll have more details about what people might will like to be involved in. And I'm sure that means that they feel a bit more able to help to join in. Thanks very much.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Chris?
Thanks. Yeah. I agree totally with what Tammy just said before. Try and have a mass cycle ride a bit like the critical mass. They were almost demonstrations. I know you don't want to tee people off who are driving. We're doing it on a Sunday afternoon. Have a big load of cyclists that cycle around Chester, sort of take over the roads in a way, and get everyone together on their bikes. I mean, a little later, I might be a little bit critical of the focus on bikes that Kathy and Tammy have just made. But if you're trying to push this, one way of doing it might be to get all the people that do want to ride and have that critical mass cycling event that just gets everybody out on their bikes and feeling part of something.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, yeah, that's it's a great idea. I think that was one that was briefly talked about last time, but getting that critical mass together and using your extensive social media followings, Chris, to help get as many people along as possible.
Well, I'd have to put my bike ties up first, Steve.
Jenny?
I was just going to say, I'll take it back to our engagement team. I think they'd be better to advise on that, but let us have a look at some of the opportunities that we could have to get involved in there, and we'll get back to you.
Brilliant, thank you. Great,
Thanks.
I'll put that down. Okay, final one from Tammy.
Yeah, sorry, I just remembered we've got a colleague in our business school that's working on an app looking at promoting walking, cycling as a kind of working on the like GP prescribing sort of work, but we're looking to trial that app, so it might be April might be a more realistic launch event that might fit in with the kind of wider agenda as well. So I'll keep you posted on how that one goes.
The new is the title Director of Transport, Rose MacArthur is very interested in that. I don't know if she's aware of that app being produced, but definitely. Yeah. Okay, good. Okay then. So yes, as I mentioned, so look at the agenda. Yeah. So, are there any other campaigns that are currently being run within your various organisations here that you think could benefit from the support of the forum as a whole? Is there anything that you think should be being done more, or that could be, like I said, promoted, helped? Whether that's from an engagement point of view, from a delivering various elements point of view. Neil, you got your hand up there.
Yeah, and you'll probably say it's coming up later, but of course it would be great if the forum supported the big plastic count, which is coming up in 2 weeks.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, I'll promote that. Very good. Kathy?
This isn't a sort of big project as such, it's a small thing, but very important for Chester. We're in 20s Plenty for Chester, and also people in the cycling campaign are hopefully joining a workshop that will be arranged by the council shortly, to look at the change in speed limit that's on Grosvenor Bridge. It's gone back from 20, it's gone back to 30 miles an hour. And the council have responded to our requests for it to stay at 20 by setting up this workshop. So if what would be useful actually would be if everyone who would like it to stay at 20, as we do, would contact their councillors, just so that councillors know that there is a demand for it. That would be really useful. And if you could promulgate that through your networks, please, that would be really useful. I'm a great believer in the fact that I think a lot of people don't actually tell politicians enough what they want. And we tend to forget that we should tell our councillors. Is that fair, Chris?
Steve, there is some of a background to this, which perhaps now is not the time to explain it, but I was surprised when that speed limit went down. Let's just say that it was not a decision that had been taken wisely, and it was lightly, and it was done on police advice. One of the things that annoys me is that highways engineers think of things in an engineering sort of way, and speed limits are set depending on what the engineer's assessment is of how fast people will go. So if the idea is, oh, people won't stick to a 20 limit, then they won't put a 20 limit down. No, there's another road. Well, the average speed's there 38.4, so we need to make it a 40-mile-an-hour zone, rather than saying, in that case, we'll bring it down to 30 and we'll enforce it. And in my view, it's done the wrong way around, and that was one of them, Kathy. I think the councillors that I speak to would be very welcoming of people telling their councillors that perhaps we need to look at that one again.
Good to know. Good to know. Yeah, good. So yeah, anyone who is particularly passionate about that, or even not so, if you could either you yourself sign up to that, or pass it around your relevant group, that would be great. Jenny?
I'm just going to play devil's advocate off the back of that and just highlight what's going on just over the border in Flintshire. There's been a very vociferous campaign in response to the 20-mile-an-hour limits that are being proposed in places like Buckley, where they've been testing it. So I would just advise having a little look over the border at that, even if it's just to understand the other side of the coin that councillors are going to get from those kinds of campaigns going through. I know that there's been like death threats to the leader of the council and stuff like that. It's been quite a surprisingly emotive topic in there. But I was actually going to raise that we will be overhauling our waste management strategy this year. And so we will be introducing some new waste management procedures for our visitors across the zoo. So bear with us, but that might be something that we can either look out to your group for advice from, or maybe bring back some of the learning from it. So we're going from a system where we have one bin on site that says stick it in here, we'll sort it, to probably going for multiple bins. So, and some of the behaviour change campaigns, and we might play a kind of tune on that. We're looking at whether or not we try different bins in different parts of the zoos and use our visitors as guinea pigs in that kind of waste management behaviour change. But bear with us, but yeah, I'll bring something back to the next one.
Yeah, so what's the logic behind putting the multiple bins? People feel more engaged with.
So there's we get a lot of contamination in putting it all in one bin, and so we're not really reaching the heights of recycling that we possibly can do. I think from our perspective, those bins have been very helpful for us for a very long time, and that people think that we have a higher rate of recycling based on chucking it all in one bin and then we sort it. There's a health and safety element to it as well, that kind of manual segregation on the other side is quite challenging. And we've just taken on a new waste contractor who's going to work with us to improve the rates of recycling and the kind of how we manage our waste on site. We're typically having a really big issue with food contamination in there. So as soon as there's food put in those bins, it's basically the whole lot becomes a problem for us, and we're looking to do better.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. I bet that could feed, if there's the actual study done that produces the data, I bet that could feed into what Quack does around the city and wider as well. So that's quite interesting.
Oh, good.
Tammy?
Just to offer Jen, our waste and recycling officer is going through a similar sort of process, where we've been improving the bin and recycling facilities across our sites at the minute. Food waste, because we have the same issue with contamination, even with all the segregated bins. So happy to put you in touch with Sam, and I'm sure we'll be happy to share.
Yes, please. Any learning we can take on, that'd be fantastic. Yeah, what works, what doesn't work. At the moment, we're having a look at different bin designs to understand what might work for us. So if we can pick up on anything that's already been tested, that would be great.
That's exactly what we're doing, trialing different types of bins in different places. So
amazing. Well, we'll just piggyback off your learning. Does it work for kids putting food in bins?
Kids are a lot better than our students.
Probably right.
Yeah.
One of the other things we might look at on site is, and this probably won't happen until next year, is disposable coffee cups on site. We are really struggling with that and understanding whether or not we actually move to. We're talking about testing it, and maybe one of our coffee houses is just saying we just don't offer disposable cups, see what the visitor reaction and the sales are to that. But definitely moving to a model of either a keep cup or a souvenir cup, or bring your own cup with that, particularly when we've got families who will bring bags and buckets and, you know, all the kids stuff and the prams that go with it. We're hoping that a kind of Stojo keep cup that you bring to the zoo with you might be a solution. And we're obviously quite a neat site in that they can't go from Costa to Starbucks and get a coffee cup from there. So we've got a captive audience that we can, like, again, it's kind of use them as guinea pigs for behavior change.
Yeah, you see it. Yeah. See it at festivals. There's a comedy festival over the weekend, and you pay a deposit of £2 for your cup, and it just immediately means that you don't throw it away.
Perfect.
Yeah, we've gone through various iterations from charging or offering an incentive for reusing your own cup. And eventually took 4 or 5 years, Rebecca, to get rid of the disposable cups. So we now don't have any at all. And we do have keep cup system, but we've also got a takeout system as well. So I can share information on that one in terms of like takeout boxes. So you get rid of the polystyrene and everything else.
Thanks very much.
Okay, good. So just back onto the idea of potential campaigns. We talked about waste management, big plastic count, 2020. John Mason?
Just on that same theme, I visited a theme park in Germany a few years ago, and I was bemused at first because I didn't speak the language. The bill for the food and drink was phenomenally expensive, and I then noticed that the park was extremely clean and everything had a deposit on it.
Okay.
So all of the cutlery, the plates, the everything basically. So you returned it and you got a big chunk of money back, and it worked very well. So
good. Chris?
Yeah, look, I just wanted to add to this because it's an important issue, but it's something that we're trying to do some work on. Helen Tandy's been, I don't know if Helen's in the meeting tonight. Helen's been doing a lot of work through Plastic Free Chester, and I've been trying to get ministers to give local authorities the powers under licensing acts to only license events if they will use reusable cups and reusable plastic. And we've been speaking to Izzy Gray, and some of you will know Izzy, who runs Diva Fest down at Chester Lakes, and we put Helen Tandy in touch with her to see if we can try this. I know that Rich has been speaking to the racecourse, and I met there with the new chief executive of the racecourse today to see if they can work on some kind of reusable cup scheme. But ideally, we would get legislation in place so that councils, as I say, would have the authority, the powers to require reusable cups. As Catherine Green always reminds me, it's legislation that changes things. But I think this would be really helpful and really useful as a campaign. And as I say, there's friends and colleagues like Christian Dunn and like I've just mentioned her name, who are pushing plastic free at the moment. They succeeded with the straws campaign, and it would be a very good way to extend that.
Sounds great. This sounds like there's a big because one of the sections that we haven't actually tackled yet is on waste and recycling. So it sounds like there is a real appetite here for a campaign related to exactly this. Being able to let's mull it over, because there's something here. I don't know exactly what it is, but there's something. Okay. Okay, good. I think that's definitely helped shape what we could potentially be doing in the next meeting around big plastic count, waste. Okay. Okay. Good. Right. So I think we're potentially slightly back on schedule now. So next item on the agenda is the kind of the forum's organization, and one of the things that as I said earlier today, and I'd mentioned back in January, was that it was really key for us to help increase the diversity that we have within the forum, and therefore the diversity of ideas is more, and therefore the quality of the discussion is better, and the quality of the campaign is better. So this is a slightly tangented example, but when I was a run leader for the Chester Roadrunners, and we had a low amount of female runners in our group, and one of the ways that really helped engage female runners to get involved was when we had an actual female run leader, and therefore I thought it was really important, as well as having an incredible expertise in many different areas, to have not just two white males on the organisation team for the forum. So Tammy has very kindly agreed to be part of the committee going forward, and I can see a big thumbs up from Chris and Kathy there. Yeah, as I'm sure you all know, Tammy has a wealth of experience in many different areas, and is going to be a great asset to the work that we are able to do. And one of the key elements that Tammy's going to be kind of leading on and taking forward is the Chester Climate Festival, or the Climate Festival, that's going to be running at the same time as COP27, in similar guise to what happened last year, but with more extensive and a collaboration with the uni. But I'll leave it there, because Tammy's going to give us an update now on not exactly, but the current state and where we're up to with the Climate Festival.
Which even I'm not quite up to speed on, because about 10 minutes ago an update has come through from a meeting with Storyhouse today, but so I scanned through. So essentially, I think I mentioned at the last meeting, we've got colleagues in our Faculty of Science and Engineering and our Performing Arts team that have joined forces with the original plan was to put on a climate symposium. So really to kind of share, like we keep having these conversations, how do we reach out to a wider audience with the sustainability climate change agenda, so that we're not always hitting the same groups. So it was a kind of run over from something that had been planned for 2020, and now collaborating with Storyhouse. So I know there had been a meeting earlier on today, and I've had a brief update, but I haven't fully digested everything. So we were originally working with the title of a climate festival, and talking to Steve in terms of how we run the forum events that we earn the run up to COP, like we did in the cathedral last November. Actually, that title worked quite well, because then we can have a series of events, and perhaps actually the land use campaign with the youth takeover might fit into there nicely. We can start to promote some of the other activities as well. So Storyhouse, we've got the Garrett Theatre booked in there. So that's an in-kind donation from Storyhouse, and the current working title for that one-day event on the 4th of November is the Storyhouse Climate. So badging it in line with a lot of their other kind of initiatives and campaigns as well. They're really keen on the community element as well as the academic research sharing opportunity. So again, how do we reach out to the wider community? So what we're looking for is to run a series of talks, workshops, hands-on activities and events that talk about that range of climate change and sustainability agendas, and performances as well. So we've got some students from our Performing Arts team that are hopefully putting on either a revised version of Secret Garden or another one that they've previously run, and it might be to have a series of short installations as well. So we will be sending out, now that we've got that kind of approval and go ahead with Storyhouse, a call for contributions, and it struck me, I've lost you on here, Mark, that actually some workshops around energy efficiency, particularly in that November when we're likely to see even more price increases in energy prices, that something hands-on there would be quite useful, and if we can appeal to that kind of wider audience. And hopefully if we've got a series of kind of arts and performances happening downstairs near the kitchen part of Story House, will naturally attract perhaps people that aren't as switched on and in our kind of initial sphere. Linked to that though, we're also then planning to have a kind of the event in the cathedral. So Steve and I and Martin met with Jane the other day, and having that series of stalls and networks. Probably was that the 12th of November?
Yes,
So,
we were thinking that was the November the 12th on the Saturday, and that being in a similar kind of format to what we've done previously.
So I think that pretty much summarizes it. What I will do, Martin, is probably jot down something once I've digested the current notes. I think I need to come back to you as well in terms of if there's any kind of financial contribution or support. I think we are looking to charge, because under that kind of festival campaign, £10 or so a ticket for the kind of entire day, including I think food. So in a slightly different format to perhaps how we've done them before. So I will put a call out and share that with Martin to circulate once we've got the final wording.
Yes, and a key element to that last time when we did the last meeting in November was that we had some sponsorship from well, one was Chester Zoo, kindly sponsored, as did Quack, as did Essential. Not sure we've got an Essential representative on the call, and there was also there was another sponsor, but that allowed us to put that event on for free. And so if we are able to get sponsors for this event, then that would obviously help bring the cost of attending down, and therefore the engagement obviously grows with that reduction in cost. So that's yeah, that would be a key thing if you groups, I know as environmental organizations, not often cash rich organizations, but any support that can be given would be great. I think we'd do a similar thing to last year, and have a small fee for the stalls in order to facilitate the organization and everything else that goes with that. The only other elements that I think to mention on that is that we have provisionally hoping to get the 11th of November for Rebecca, a slightly revised climate youth conference. I remember, because you mentioned it being on the Friday would significantly be able to increase the amount of youth engagement we got, because we'd be able to get entire school classes as opposed to just the children, because last time the Climate Youth Conference was run on a Saturday, and I think it was generally accepted that the attendance on that wasn't quite as high as people wanted. And the main reason, I think, because the people attending, or being on a Saturday, the children attending were only really the children of engaged climate parents, and therefore yeah, it's again, it's pushing past these barriers of being in our echo chamber. And so if we can have full school groups with entire classes there, then that's a real way to yeah, to hopefully push past this echo chamber. So yes, anyone who would like a stall in the same way as we did last year, looking at November 12th, which will be during COP27, please drop myself or Martin at the Chester Sustainability Forum at gmail.com email address, and we'll start collating them over the next few months, and then we will yeah, have more updates on the other two elements. Anything else, Tammy, Martin?
Not from me.
No, no, I think you've captured everything there, Steve. Thanks.
Okay, grand. So next one we got on here then is on the agenda, that is the Green Expo, the Big Green Expo, or just the Green Expo? Anyway, Neil's going to give us more details on that.
Can I share my screen, Martin, or do you need to set me up as a co-host?
I think you should be okay. Give it a go.
Can you see that?
Yep.
So, yeah, just thanks for the chance to tell people about the Green Expo, which I mentioned a few months ago, but it's taking shape now, really. Someone commented earlier about youth involvement and why should youth care about all this? I suppose the simple answer from the point of view of the Green Expo is the tens of thousands of jobs that are going to be created locally, more jobs than people are being born in the area. You know, so there's fantastic opportunities for the young people of Chester and Cheshire West. And the Expo is going to be one of the ways we can make sure that they understand what the opportunities are. So that's what we're doing. I guess the biggest thing about it all is, of course, the fact that the Northwest and HyNet was chosen to be track one in the government's decarbonisation plans, and actually will deliver first compared to the Northeast. So we'll be the first net zero cluster in the UK, and people are going to want to invest. There's lots of businesses are going to move here. And so the Green Expo conference is partly an inward investment conference to tell people about the opportunities to do that. It's actually, I know lots of people have issues with blue hydrogen, which I won't. And I think the case for blue hydrogen has actually got worse since the Ukraine war. But one of the great opportunities we've got with carbon capture is greenhouse gas removals, because there's already too much carbon in the atmosphere. And really the only way for greenhouse gas removals from the atmosphere to reduce the carbon in the atmosphere is to grow plants and capture the carbon and bury it in Liverpool Bay. So that's the sort of things that we're going to be doing at the Expo. I'll just go through, this is our website, greenexpo.uk. So I won't read it all out to you, but I just thought I'd highlight some of the pages. We've been fortunate to get a lot of people interested in promoting the Northwest and the opportunities that are being created on the back of solving the climate crisis locally. So we've got Peel, NRE, NSERC, the big glass company. Of course, glass can be recycled infinitely, unlike plastic. Tatton, the university, Grosvenor, Cheshire East, Cheshire West, and the Warrington and Cheshire LEP. NatWest, CNG Services, a biomethane company, EA Technology, Deep Bridge Capital, Cheshire College are going to be doing the catering for one of the events, Cadent Gas, Thermify, Innovin, who are an INEOS company, Deloitte. Anyway, so Fulcrum, the people making the renewable jet fuel and piping it to Manchester Airport. So you can see, Chester Zoo, SP Energy Networks, Broad Oak Capital, lots of people. So there's a lot of interest, and a lot of these businesses want to talk to people about the jobs they're going to create and the opportunities, and also the opportunities for new businesses to move to the area. Because I was at a conference a couple of weeks ago, and it was very interesting because several presenters basically drew a line across the country, east to west, just below Chester, between Chester and Birmingham, and basically said, you know, there's only carbon capture available north of this line. So industry is going to have to leave the south and move north. And that's the opportunity for all the young people who are needing jobs. A few of the other things that we'll be talking about, of course, the government's energy strategy has doubled hydrogen production targets for 2030. And they've said the majority of that, by which they said, by majority, we mean it could be 100%, is going to be green hydrogen. So these people who don't like blue hydrogen, most of the hydrogen by 2030, the government now says is going to be green. Peel just had a thing a week or so ago announcing their net zero industrial park next to the NSERC factory. Progressive have announced their plans for liquid CO2 transportation and injection, so we can decarbonize all sorts of small businesses and farming across the county. And perhaps the most interesting thing for me is the Derbyshire cement pipe. So the plans are being developed in detail now to decarbonize the Derbyshire cement industry, and the pipe bringing all the carbon, which is 3 million tons a year of carbon, that'll run right across Cheshire. So basically anywhere in Cheshire, we're calling it like net zero Cheshire as the opportunity, instead of it just being a cluster around Ellesmere Port. Anywhere along that pipe route, you can build a factory and capture all the carbon and be net zero, and therefore be a successful business, because people will want to buy net zero products from Net Zero Cheshire. So anyway, that's what we're going to be promoting. I've shown you the sponsors. The people at the main event on the 15th of June, we've got an awards dinner courtesy of His Grace the Duke of Westminster. So it'll be held at Eaton Park. The food, the catering is being done with students from Chester College. We've got the business conference. You can buy tickets online for all these events. The business conference, which is on the 16th of June, which has a number of prestigious speakers, the leader of Cheshire East, leader of Cheshire West, various politicians. There's going to be roundtables, and a lot of industry will be talking about the opportunities they're creating locally. There's the youth conference that Rebecca mentioned briefly, which is being organised by the university, which I think is very exciting. So that'll give youth an opportunity to say what they think their future should be like. They've heard industry and the people with money saying this is what we're creating, but maybe that's not what they want. So it'd be great for the youth to have a day to put their point across. And Helen Tandy's organising the Green Exposition, which is like a trade show for anyone who's got green products or services, runs for 3 days, 16th of June to the 18th of June. All this happens on the riverbank between the Tim Wheeler building and the river, next to the old hydro building. So the trade show will be on the grass verge there. The conference is inside the old county hall. Yeah, and that's it. And you can go to the website and buy tickets. And I hope to see you there. Thanks, Steve.
No problem. Do we have any questions about the event itself?
Just a reflection more than anything, that it's very industry focused. And representing Chester Zoo and our interests in kind of land use and conservation, that doesn't seem to be reflected in the kind of green topic. It's more kind of green industry expo.
Yeah, there's a couple of major landowners are sponsors and we'll be talking. And I did mention earlier that I think Annette MacDonald from Tatton is one of the speakers, and she was my boss putting together the land use plan for Cheshire, which I mentioned earlier, which I'm hoping you're going to comment on. So
fingers crossed, yeah.
There is a land use plan, and there's lots of jobs in that as well.
Is it not, is it not meant to be industry focused in the sense that it's an economic development conference, but we want our focus on economic development to be in green and environmental and sustainable industry, as opposed to ones that perhaps won't fit that bill, and therefore it's setting an agenda and a tone for all that inward investment that we hope to attract.
Yeah, that's very well put. Thank you.
I think the focus of of it being industry focused means that it doesn't clash, although has synergies with the climate festival that we were talking about going on in the winter. So these happening, if they continue to happen, approximately 6 months from one another, will roll quite nicely as the year goes on, hopefully.
Yeah.
Sorry, if I can just say one other thing, actually. Yeah. So, I mean, I think traditionally, talking about industry and land use as separate things, I think is a bit old-fashioned. So, you know, for example, we expect to be growing food on industrial estates, which is more efficient than using fields. And a lot of the industrial groups I mentioned are very interested in that, and using industrial waste products like heat and carbon to help us grow plants instead of flying them in from Africa. So I would say that, you know, there's a big overlap now, and we need to, and the strategy for Cheshire talks about integrating industry and food production and land use far more, and freeing up land for biodiversity by being more efficient, basically.
And I think that's my comment, that sort of distinguishing industry and economic development from the rest of the conversation about climate, where we're focusing on land use, is creating a distinction between the two industries that I'm not sure we want to perpetuate. So it would be really interesting at that event to be talking about some of those industrial applications for agriculture and for biodiversity, so that we are starting to, you know, see those organizations talking about sustainability in the round. I think carbon capture and net zero is one thing, where that is relating to renewable energy and piping it out to Liverpool Bay and pumping it underground so that you can call yourself net zero. But you know, part of that transition is going to have an impact on biodiversity. So yeah, I think inviting that broader discussion, I think, would be helpful.
Yeah, and I think that's part. Sorry, I was trying to be very brief, but you're absolutely right. And of course, I've said, you know, we anticipate food production is going to move on to industrial estates instead of in fields. And equally, land is of extremely high value for energy production. So, and carbon capture is, I mentioned greenhouse gas removals, and that's all about growing plants, using them to make energy and capturing the carbon and burying it. So absolutely, land use, the future of biodiversity and industry are all totally integrated in what we see as the future. And that's what all these people who want to put money into it are going to talk about in June.
John Mason?
Yeah, just to echo that, I mean, I work for a planning consultancy. We're involved in some of the projects that are happening in that area. It's all inherently about land use. It's about land use planning. What we do, because we've got limited resources, we're going to use them for all of these different things. All of these projects that need to come forward are going to have to consider through the planning process all of these issues. So yeah, it's all part and parcel of it. So. And Neil, I'm quite keen to get involved as well, so I'll message you separately.
Great, thanks.
Biodiversity again being a big requirement. Okay. Very good. Right, so we're quite close towards the end now, but we've got so Sean English, who just the big plastic count has already been mentioned, but Sean, do you want to give us some more details on that?
Yeah, I'm aware that time is a factor. I'm just wondering if there is enough time to show like a 1.5-minute video. It will give an idea of the general ins and outs of the activity itself.
Yeah.
Okay. Made that 2 minutes with the whole getting everything ready thing.
Calling all households across the UK. We're all doing our bit to recycle, but we're still drowning in plastic. Something doesn't add up. That's why we need your help. A big plastic can, and together we can uncover the truth about what happens to our plastic waste. For 1 week in May, all you'll need to do is count the plastic you recycle or throw away. So, how will you count yours? In total chaos? Someone's taking note of this, right? Oh, good. Is it flung, valid or dumped? Yes! Oh, Or is it in the midst of 100 other things? Ooh, careful. Perhaps it's all in the detail. Maybe it's a team effort.
This is what I wanted my toy from yesterday. I thought I lost it.
Or not. It doesn't matter how you count, it's the counting that counts. Join thousands of people across the country and take part in the UK's biggest ever investigation into household plastic. Together we'll uncover what happens to our plastic waste and push the government and the supermarkets to tackle the plastic crisis. Let's get counting.
And that'd be something else to do with Greenpeace, I think. But stop the share. Right. Yeah, so to add a little bit of extra context to that video, I'm just gonna pull up the summary briefing. There we go. Yeah, so overall, Greenpeace feels that we're using too much plastic. The UK produces more plastic packaging per person than almost any other country in the world. Only the US is worse, and if things carry on as they are, the amount of plastic waste produced around the world is set to double by 2040. Supermarkets, brands, and the government continue to push recycling as the solution to the plastic waste crisis, even though we're producing too much in the first place and our recycling systems can't cope. It's a smoke and mirrors game that maintains the status quo, continuing production. Recycling alone isn't going to solve our plastic problems, but at the moment, there's nowhere near enough evidence to show how much plastic leaves UK households, and most of us have no idea where it really ends up when we throw it in the bin or the recycling. That's why Greenpeace and the Everyday Plastic have come together to create the Big Plastic Count. A little bit of background on the Everyday Plastic. Everyday Plastic is a small social enterprise funded by Daniel Webb, who decided to collect every piece of plastic he generated for an entire year. With the help of a scientific researcher, he developed a unique methodology to analyze his year-long collection of plastic waste to calculate his personal plastic footprint and gain an in-depth insight to what he threw away and where it ended up. So now, together with Greenpeace and Everyday Plastic, are scaling up this and offering the public the same opportunity to get to grips with their own plastic footprint and gather the proof we need to push the government to get it right and set the target to reduce single-use plastic by 50% by 2025 and put a ban on sending our plastic waste to other countries. This year, the government is starting to decide on targets to reduce plastic waste using the evidence from thousands of homes. We will reveal the truth about what is happening to the UK's plastic waste and change the public and media narrative. Reduction is the core solution to the global plastics crisis, as well as a shift to reuse, refill economy. So yeah, that's the general background. I shall fire over a link now so that, obviously the big issue at the moment is simply sharing everything.
I think Pete Benson has already sent that link in the chat there for anyone.
Oh, perfect. Yep, that looks about right. Yeah.
And so this is running any week in...
it's the 16th to the 22nd of May.
The 16th to the 22nd of May.
Yeah.
Okay. And all the in-depth info is on there, and it looked like there was potentially help sheets or something there.
Yes, yeah. Once you sign up, you'll be able to have a choice whether or not you want a digital pack or have a pack posted to you. And yeah, it's fairly straightforward. They tried to maintain the balance between having a good robust data set and also not making it too in-depth and mind-blowing for anyone who's trying to go into it. So yeah, it should be fairly straightforward, and it could be fun. Obviously they try to make it as bright as possible. But yeah, it's counting at the end of the day, so they've done their best.
Yeah, very good. I have to say that of all environmental issues that my 8 and 10-year-olds are concerned about, plastic and being aware of it, I think is, if not number one, very close to being. So getting their kids involved in this is something that I probably will be doing. Okay, good. So now we're on to AOB. Chris Matheson. As I said, we kind of touched upon a couple of the things that you maybe wanted to mention, but yeah, go ahead. I think it's still.
Thanks, Steve. And you're right. I mean, if I look back and when this was this group was founded a few years ago, and it was very much to bring people of a like mind together and to try and coordinate activities so that we could find out what other different groups across Chester were doing to tackle the ecological emergency, whether that's a climate emergency, a biodiversity emergency, and over time we've tried to sort of refocus it more towards actions and delivering change, and there's been some really useful events. What I do worry about, and I've said this to quite a few of you before, you know, look at the people who are on this meeting. There's a bunch of great people, great bodies and groups that are represented, and a lot of people I consider friends, not just in this group, but across lots of different areas. My worry has been, and to an extent it's been allayed tonight because there's been a different focus, and my worry has been, how do we get our message across to people who perhaps don't have share our views, or perhaps not share our don't share our views, but have no idea how they can play a part in tackling the emergencies which we all face. I know there's crackpots out there who do not believe that there is a climate emergency, and there is a sort of a secondary group who think that there probably is, but are opposed to net zero. I'm seeing quite a lot more of those in the political sphere at the moment, probably because they think that the costs of net zero are going to be too great economically. I don't. Obviously, the obvious answer to that is the costs of not achieving it are going to be even greater. The people I'm worried about are those in the middle who are feeling perhaps a little bit overwhelmed by the whole thing, or those who want to do something but don't know how they can do it, or who realize there's a problem but really don't feel that they particularly want to, you know, their life's quite comfortable, they don't want to. So how do we get to those people? And I'm not expecting answers now. You can go take it away for your homework before the next meeting or the meeting after that. We talked about young people today. When I go around schools, this is the only issue that they talk about. Ecological, sustainability, environmental, climate, whatever it is, plastic. Youngsters are absolutely aware of it and absolutely plugged in. How do we get to those people for whom it's just a little bit too much? For example, we've talked about cycling today. It's a great way forward, but telling people that they've all got to get on their bikes ain't going to work. We have to bring people with them. I'd like better public transport. We've really struggled with this, with the local authority trying to do their very best for it, but there's there's no money for buses, and even the buses, the local councillors, and Rich is on this call, and the council officials have tried to look at using some of the climate emergency fund for new buses, and it's actually really difficult to get to achieve. So what's impressed me about tonight, whether it was the first presentation talking about how we can get to people to help them with their bills, what was the phrase that he used, the nurse with a busy life and 3 children to look after, some of the stuff that Jennifer and Tammy talked about to reach out to other parts of the population. What's impressed me tonight is that there's been a real focus in this group on how we spread that message. But I would like to, I don't expect answers now, Steve. I don't want answers now. I would like members to think about how we talk to people who aren't like us and how we get that message across with events maybe, but in more general life. So if people could think about that over the sort of medium term, the next few months, so that when we have the events like we've discussed tonight, is not the same people turning up. And that's already been referenced tonight. But Steve, I'm grateful for the opportunity to chuck that out there and think about how we spread our net wider. Thank you all.
Yeah, indeed. I think it's as key an element of anything that we do is that engagement element. Yes, I know, not to put you on the spot, Rebecca, but I know this is something that you've done quite a bit of research into, even, and something that is close to your heart more than as much as anything else. So any advice that you can pass on in improving that engagement would be incredibly helpful.
It's probably
okay.
something. Sorry, I was just going
okay. So Ed is still on any other business? Any other? Oh, my internet connection is unstable.
Steve, do we just want to go back to? I'm just trying to remember who raised it. It was Andrew who raised the issue of fracking at the British Geological Survey before, and because I'm afraid it is rearing its ugly head again, as Andrew's just described.
Yes,
Steve?
absolutely. Sorry, my internet is just gone a bit slow, but yes, Andrew, there was definitely the fracking issue you raised earlier.
Well, yes, I mentioned, I'm sorry I raised it at the wrong point in the meeting, but I raised it, and it is an issue. It may even come up at this Expo, Green Expo conference. Innovin are taking part, and it may come up there.
I stuck my hand up, but I'll just, if you don't mind me butting in. So it won't come up at the conference. I don't believe anyone in support of fracking is speaking, or we haven't taken money from them. Innovin are there because they're the lead company for hydrogen storage in the salt caverns.
Yeah.
So that's about hydrogen, not about fracking. I think my understanding is Kwasi Kwarteng asked the British Geological Survey to do an independent assessment of the risks of fracking, and they're going to report in about 3 months. Is that right?
Yeah.
So we've got 3 months to try and influence them.
Well, I think that's right, and I think that I mean, look, you all know my view. I'm opposed to it on every single level, but obviously the destruction to a local, immediate environment is one of them, but also this whole notion that we just have to move away from fossil fuels, and it would be a huge step backwards for us. And there are lots of pressure at the moment, and I've just talked about these people who are opposed to net zero, and there's a lot of pressure to go ahead. I'm wondering what the political pressure will be on the British Geological Survey. I am concerned, and we talked earlier about engineers giving an answer. Apologies to any engineers on the discussion tonight, who tend to give a sort of black and white, clear answer. And I don't, the BGS will be asked about seismic activity only. None of the other stuff that goes along with fracking, and my concern is that will be used as a way to legitimize it. And I would remind you all of the work that many of you on this call, led by Colin Watson, did in terms of the public inquiry from several years ago now, and I think it was it in, I don't know, it was Ince Marshes or the one just over by Ellesmere Port, to do test drilling, and that has never reported. That public inquiry, the inspector report, has never reported. And my concern is that will be used as another door opening to allow fracking to go ahead. They'll get this BGS result, and then they'll at the same time announce an inspector's decision or Secretary of State's decision that will take that forward. So I would, on the assumption that everybody here shares my views on this, maybe a wrong assumption, I would ask us all to be very vigilant and be ready to move very quickly to mobilize public opinion in this area.
Well said, absolutely. And so anyone who is more involved than myself, or indeed Chris, that is able to point us in the direction with which we can engage on this subject. Frack 3D, yes, of course, Pete. Then yeah, any links that can be shared to public inquiries, whatever else it may be, that we can voice an opinion, please feel free to share it with us as soon as you're aware of anything, and we'll distribute it to the mailing list. Jenny?
Yeah, possibly another provocation, but considering we have a blue hydrogen plant that we are very supportive of, do we need to be considering, you know, that natural gas needs to come from somewhere, and if fracking is an opportunity to generate energy security in the UK, that is possibly a piece of feedback that, or an argument that we might need to be ready for when fracking is coming back on the table. It's certainly something, you know, we're very concerned about the idea of fracking coming back on the table, but I would say, having responded to the HyNet CO2 pipeline consultation because it crosses Chester Zooland, I think this might get a little bit sticky in Cheshire West and Chester because of the HyNet project, and so we are kind of bought into utilising gas to generate hydrogen, and then it possibly becomes a bit NIMBYism if we don't want that gas extracted from our own county. So provocation, but something that we as a forum might need to consider, because we are choosing two sides of the same argument between HyNet and fracking there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, first I'd say that the wholehearted support for every element of HyNet, I don't think is shared unanimously within the group here. I think it's something that is actually quite divisive, and so and one of the key elements to that is the idea, the concept that that blue hydrogen facilitates increased gas usage. And so yeah, I personally, I wouldn't again like to speak for everyone. I think there's more than enough gas out there that can be used without fracking, even within the UK and the current situation that we're in. Feel free to disagree. Okay. Oh, I was going to jump to Gillian. She's put a hand down. I realise that we're over by nearly 10 minutes now. So, has anybody got anything else quick that they would like to say? No. Okay. So, final thing will be to set a date of the next meeting. So first Thursday of every other month. That puts us through to the 7th of July. Just checking the diary, should be fine, but yes, so 7th of July. Okay, great, thank you all very much. Really engaged input this evening. It's been very good, and there's been great focus on action, great focus on diversity, great focus on getting past our echo chamber, getting past the people that are already engaged. So that's I feel really buoyed, and I feel really impressed when I look at the variety of the agenda that we've got here, and the wide-ranging issues that we're tackling together. I feel very buoyed. I feeling impressed. So thank you all very much for that. Okay, right. Thank you all. Have a good night. Bye now.
Bye.